Hello?
Record.
Okay, it's 7:35. Good evening. My name is Jessica Well.
Good evening. I couldn't get
This is the last
unmuted.
public safety meeting for this year because we go from September to June. And this is the last meeting for the year. We start back again in September. So welcome everybody. Can we please have everybody introduce themselves? A member of the board, or if you're just a committee member, or what brought you to our meeting and what you're interested in? Hello, my name is Jessica Welch, and I'm public safety chair, and I welcome everybody that's here to our meeting. Next.
Monica McCain Brown, committee member.
Welcome, Ms. Brown.
Audrey
Next.
Henderson, committee member.
Welcome, Ms. Henderson. Next.
Samantha Sibley Obas, committee member.
Welcome, Ms. Obas. Next. Miss Kathy. Miss Kathy, can you introduce yourself, please? Hello? Miss Lavelle? Hello? Miss Lavelle?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, can you introduce yourself, please?
Kathy LaVille, committee member.
Thank you for being here. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes. And this evening we're joined by two community board personnel, Miss Lyons and
Lyons, community assistant.
and who else? The next community member that's also joined us today.
Oh, good evening, everyone. This is Carlene Murray Gordon, the Assistant District Manager for Community Board 17. Good evening. It's good to be here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. The last time when we met, we were discussing about the new shops in our neighborhood that sell cannabis, and we found out that there are only, in the whole New York City area, there are only 6 cannabis shops that are really legal. All these other cannabis shops are not. And I did speak to Mr. Daly about it being a issue of quality of life, having so many next to each other, across the street from each other, in any area. And at this time, because they are not really regulated, but we can make it an issue where it could be a quality of life issue for our own neighborhood. So I've been asking, and I also spoke to somebody over in Community Board 14 that also is part of their public safety. And they were also going to make it an issue that it's too many of them in the area at one time. But there's no regulations that's saying that there are too many, and there's no regulation that's saying where they could be. And they haven't gotten to that point in our neighborhood. Yes, Miss Burnett. Oh, can you introduce yourself, please? Miss Burnett?
Adele Bennett, committee member. But there is one little thing I want to say, and I'm glad you got onto this subject. Because they're opening up, like you said, block after block after block. 2, 3, 4 in a block. There's too many for those places. And they have to be 500 feet from a school, daycare. That's one thing I did find out. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say they have to be 500 feet. That's something we can push. They're not supposed to be 2 and 3 of those things quartered together or clumped together. But they're doing it not because they're not regular. They do have some rules and regulations, but they're very few. It's like they opened the genie out the bottle and didn't put any real laws in. Then now we have to put the laws in. Because other parts of the state and other states, they have put this out for a quality of life issue also. Because you have children breathing this in. They say you go into a park, any park, all you smell is weed. All you smell. And they sat like with the drunk drivers, the mothers against drunk drivers. Now mothers are getting together against weed smoking, where children have to smell it and breathe that in. That's an issue that we can't. And yes, you're correct. We should get together with our other community boards who have this issue. But if we band together and go after it, they have to do something a little bit quicker. They're not doing it. Other than me, they're trying to open a weed lounge. It's at the corner of, I think it's East 89th Street and Church Avenue. Where the old, can you hear me? It's where the old,
Yeah, I can hear you.
dealership used to be. There's an old auto unit dealership used to be. Right there with is that bend? Right there, right off of Ralph Avenue. I said, wait a minute. They're putting up a wood structure, a building, and adding onto it. I said, oh my God, they're making
Well,
a
they have,
lounge?
they actually have a Jackie's cannabis cuisine right there at the mouth of the Jackie Robinson on the side with East New York.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole cannabis cuisine.
Oh my God. And guess what? I bet you it's not really, but the kids going in and buying it. The same thing over here, it says edibles.
Yes, they have the edibles, and they say they use certain parts of the cannabis plant. That's important. I really didn't look and see what it was. So
Well, I know they use the oils for medical reasons, but they really don't use too much. But yeah, right here, they're going to open a club. And it's within 100 feet of a school. Because in Remsen, opposite the Burger King, you know the area?
well, that's over there by where they have the East New York bus depot
No, this right near me, right here.
by the mouth of the Jackie Robinson Parkway.
Well, this is over off of Remsen Avenue, where Ralph Avenue meets and curves, right there on Church Avenue. It's 8910 Church Avenue. What I notice is they have no permits to put that building up. The fire hazard waiting to happen. Some of us contacted on that block. The people don't want it either. Because they're going to be breathing all that in. Can you imagine waking up in the middle of the night, finding yourself high as a kite? I
I
know.
I don't know what to
Uh,
say, but it's a little bit serious
in a
because from
butts.
what I understand at our last meeting, one of the community committee members was
Mhm.
explaining that they can have it by the daycare, but you can't have it near the school, and the
Mm,
daycare is not the same as the school, and they have right
because
there on
yeah.
Flatbush near Nostrand, they have
Mhm.
it on each block.
No, what I found out was some of the daycares are schools because they have teachers in there. Depending on the age, they have what they call preschool in there. And if they're certified for preschool, it's a school.
Well, they said it's
They
not.
they say it because maybe they want to go into that business. I don't know, but no, any school they can't have it near no school. 500 feet from any school, including preschools, and that's for young children. They don't need to smell that. No, that's wrong. Well, I found out from the state, and no preschools. Once you
Um,
got that word school in it, that's it.
well, they said it makes a difference. So I said,
Nah, I think
school is
check with the
school,
state.
whether you're 3
That's
or
right,
whether
preschool.
you're 15.
That's right. A school, once you got the word school and it's certified by the state as a school, even if it's preschool, they can't be there. Somebody misinterpreted that. But
I
no.
don't think it's a misinterpretation. I just think is um they're using uh the premise that you don't have so many teachers at the so-called daycare, but you have a lot of teachers at the school.
Yeah.
Why it's
Nah.
not considered a school? It's considered
I'll check again
daycare
because
only.
yeah, I'll check again. I'll check again. But last time I checked, they said school, preschool. Who would want a preschool age child breathing that in? They want these kids to grow up crazy?
Uh, I
Nah. Somebody,
don't know.
somebody,
I just know
that's a
that
misinterpretation.
anybody that's underage shouldn't be taking in the cannabis like that.
They shouldn't be breathing that in. And there's no testing or information about secondhand weed smoke. That's why they said 500 feet from a school. I'm also in the Commerce too, about 2 months ago. And that's when they said 500 feet. But because it's not that there's no law against it, it's just that the police are slow to act. Unless we get a list together over the summer of the distance between the schools or preschools, once they get that certification, it's still legally a school. It's just a time that they open. But who wants to come to a place where little kids are and breathe whatever into that building or that area? Nah, it's dangerous. But no, we have to get a list together.
So what we want to do as a community board is just where raise the awareness as to what quality of life issues that we can say that this cannabis selling and cannabis cooking is raising to our community. Because if it's like sometimes it's two
Mm-hmm.
on one block and
The
they
way, what
go
I'm
by different
noticing,
names, smoke shop, cannabis shop.
they're
They
all
put the
your
they put
smoke
the
shop. Oh, listen to this. Near me, it says wellness bar.
Yeah, that's the one that's the Jackie Wellness Lounge.
Yeah, they got one over here now. They put one over near me, right off
Oh,
Avenue in Church.
next to a church.
No, Ralph Avenue and Church Avenue. They put
Oh,
it near
that's the
me.
one that's 8910 Church Avenue.
Yeah, that's it, 8910. But I had to Google it. They used to be used oil place. But as soon as I found out they're building a structure, I said, wait a minute. The last time that happened was across from the McDonald's on Kings Highway and Church, and that burned up. You remember hearing about that? It had a 5-alarm fire. It singed and burnt the inside of the people's homes. It was so hot on the brick, it it melted the walls.
It melted the what?
The wall inside where where they had the sheetrock and the paint, the walls was kind of buckled from the heat.
Mm.
That's a tire shop. The tire shop that's still opposite the McDonald's on Kings Highway, right here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you cannot build no wood structure without a permit. And the one thing I went over there to look, no permits.
Okay. Miss Lyons. I just to interrupt the cannabis talk. Uh, I just wanted to know how many people we have taken off of the committee so we can actually have an approval of some of our minutes.
You have 16 members and you only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on tonight.
So we only have 5 of them today.
Yes.
We have 16. So we actually just need 8 or 9 people to be here and we could approve all the minutes.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
gonna go in and check, but I'm pretty sure it's 16, but I'm gonna check again. Hold on. Okay, you can talk. I'm gonna look at your list.
Okay, so we could continue our cannabis talk. It's just that
Mhm.
I beg your pardon.
I said yes.
Yes. The other committee members, do you have anything else to offer? You might have found out something about the make us be aware of how these cannabis shops are popping up and nobody's doing anything about them. I was hoping Mr. Skinner would be here today.
Would have been nice. Maybe we can contact somebody with the state because they're the ones doing this. They're the ones that opened up the genie. Let the genie out the bottle. Common sense.
May I make a suggestion? It's 18 members, Ms. Welch. But may I make a
So
suggestion?
yes.
If there are only 6 legal ones in the state, that's what you're saying, and within the city, it's only 6 legal, right?
Yes,
Mhm.
that's what Mr. Tate had found out.
So what we would need to do is find out the exact 6 that are considered legal. And
Oh no, we know I had gotten the exact 6 and only 2 of them is in Brooklyn.
Mhm.
But are any of them in East Flatbush?
From what I understand, there wasn't any in our area, but they had one downtown and Mr. Tate had the locations. Did he come on yet?
No. Right. So there's none within East Flatbush. So what
Not
needs to be done is we need to find the addresses and locations of the illegal ones And
Well,
it's-
all the illegal ones is on like every block.
Yeah, they're
It
all
was like
illegal in our district.
right, but I would still need the exact addresses so I can submit them to um tobacco and what is that called?
but they're not under regulations through tobacco.
Right, they
The
don't have
people
to be,
that's
but
giving
that's
them
who would find them.
no, but the people that are giving them the pat on the back is the state. It's not tobacco.
Right, so that's
Because
what I mean. You would need to go a little further. So what is it? The ATF, I think, alcohol,
Yeah,
tobacco, and
but
Mums.
cannabis is not a
And
tobacco.
firearms. It's alcohol, tobacco, firearms.
right, but it's supposed to marijuana, all that different stuff. I think it goes under a division of ATF. If it goes under a division of ATF,
No, because it's considered a herb.
Mm-hmm.
What?
You know they're not selling it like, oh, here, take this cannabis, it's gonna make you high.
so
They're
then who would
selling
it
it
go
under the
under?
pretext that it's going to be health. It's under
Just
drug
like alcohol.
enforcement, like the
I thought it was-
pharmaceuticals.
Yeah? No. And they're like a pharmacy. No. I think it's ATF, like she said, because
I don't think it's
it's,
under pharmacy.
I think it's ATF. Like alcohol, it said you can't drive high, but you can't impaired. This is like an alcohol. You can't drive drunk. Same thing. They call it impaired now. That's something else. They're driving all around this community under the influence. That's something the police need to crack down on.
So tomorrow morning when I get in, I could try and find out who actually governs these places. And then
And enforce it.
we could take it from there to see if the local police are not doing enough, then you need to go higher.
Well, according to them, it's the state. The state.
The state. Because Hoko opened the door.
I'm gonna try to find out what I can. Once I find out what I can, I'll contact you, Miss Welch. And then you tell me what you want me to do from there. Okay, I'll do that tomorrow morning.
Find out.
Also, there's something else. Most of these lounges, you definitely have to have permits for a lounge. I don't want to burn up nobody's house.
We'll find out who governs cannabis lounges. And
I do know this. If you open a lounge, there's like any other business here.
yeah,
you have to
but
go-
usually a lounge
go
goes
us.
to the commerce department, or even if
I'm
it
on
was
the
a
commerce
hookah,
committee.
even if it was a hookie or whatever lounge, they still goes under they go under the commerce because they do liquor, meaning beers and things like that.
Hookah, no. Hookah just
They like actually tell them
they smoke it.
You-
They smoke it and they breathe that in. But no, the fire department need to regulate them too. We got it.
Hello, my name is
Yes.
Audrey Henderson. And
Yes, Miss
just want-
Henderson, go ahead.
Yeah, I know that you're talking about the cannabis and all of these stores that are opening up. But also we have another public safety problem in the neighborhood. A lot of fireworks. You know, they're making a lot of noise every night. At least in my neighborhood, I live on East 43rd between Avenue Farragut and Foster. And every night, even today, not too long ago, they were making a lot of noise with this thing, with the fireworks, and it's becoming a nuisance.
But you know that when it comes to fireworks, that's a public nuisance. But
PD,
the
that's PD
police,
control it.
the police, you can't call. They'll put a job in the system and they'll go and see about it. But it only becomes like illegal when they have a lot of them and they're selling it. Otherwise, it's just a nuisance.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Henderson?
I know they, Miss Boss, I'm sorry. I know
Yes,
they
yes,
don't
I'm
want,
listening. Yeah.
yeah, they don't want the fireworks going off because it's dangerous for children, because it's mostly kids. That's why they blow their hands off. They blow their fingers off. They lose an eye. No, that's the cops said call them, but we gotta let them know that you came to this meeting. You gotta have what they call community backing to get the cops to move on it. Like you said, it would be nice if Detective Skinner was here. But I think they're preparing for this weekend. It's a shame.
Wow.
Welch, can you hear
Yeah,
me?
I beg your
Yeah.
pardon?
I said no. I said, Miss Welch, can you hear me?
Yes, I heard you. I
Okay,
heard you.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
I did.
They they said
I was just writing something down about the fireworks
yeah.
and
They said that.
all that
Yeah, yeah.
the people that
If
live in
they
the
can
neighborhood
shoot,
can do
yeah,
is
'cause
just
yeah,
call the patients or
yeah,
911.
yeah, yeah. But for backing from us, they just said they're gonna have to shoot you an email. The what's going on. This weekend gonna be busy.
People. Lord of law.
She gonna mute herself.
Everyone, hello? Hello?
I hear
Yes, Miss.
you.
Hi. Yeah, everyone knows that the issue with the fireworks is they have to catch them in the act. The only thing with that, most times when they pull up, the kids disperse or they'll hide it. It's such a tricky situation with the fireworks situation, and I know it's aggravating because I don't even live in East Flatbush. I live over here, and it is on all day. They are all night. It's ridiculous. But I can definitely submit the complaint to the 67th and see if they have if they're putting together some type of unit to try and get on this a little faster.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
They
you.
did do that one year, so I'm hoping they're doing it again this year.
Okay. Yeah, they started early.
What was that location again?
I live, I don't know, it seems that it's coming from maybe, I don't know, Troy Avenue between Farragut and Foster. I am not too sure.
Over there in George's area.
Yeah.
I said it's a shame. Yeah, and they usually use those, what's they call those bombs that blow up everything. They don't realize they'll blow your fingers off. A hand, an eye you lose. Hello? Jessica, you there? Miss Jessica, you there?
Oh, I'm here. I'm sorry, the mute,
There you. Okay.
but I'm here, and I was saying the location, Troy, between Farragut and Foster.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes, I wrote the location, public safety, fireworks, Troy, between Farragut
Mm-hmm.
and Foster Avenue.
Oh, what about Foster? I believe they opened the weed shop right down the block from the school over there off of, where the community board office is? They opened a weed shop right there.
Yes, there is one. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You have the
Mm-hmm.
school right over there too. So
Mm-hmm. It's within 50 feet of a school. Oh, March Thursday.
I'm saying, what school is that?
It's across from the community board office.
The school that's
Albany and
across from the community
Farragut.
board?
Yeah. The school
yeah,
right there.
on 42nd Street between by Albany and Farragut, right there.
Yeah, what a park is. The Farragut Park is right there.
Yes.
Between Albany and 42 on Farragut.
Mm-hmm.
Believe it's 398
That's the
or
name of the school,
198.
398?
Might be,
Good, she got
don't
the
quote me. It's either 3
It's
or 198. 198 or 390, but don't quote me.
have to Google it to
or
see it.
398. It's one of those schools, okay? 398
Mm-hmm.
or 198.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just want to see if anybody else joined us. Okay, so we're still waiting for that. And I
We have someone just joined, Jeffrey Sevier, public advocate.
the public advocate just joined.
Yeah, someone from public advocate.
Oh, I see, public advocate office. And that's I can't see the name. Jeffrey Sevier. Hello?
Yes, hello, good evening. My name is Jeffrey
Can you
Sevier.
please introduce yourself? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Jeffrey Sevier. I'm the Justice Coordinator at the New York City Public Advocate Jumaane D. Williams' office. I was just joining up in the meeting. Apologies, I was late attending another meeting with Assembly member, water member. So I was just joining.
Okay, well, thanks for coming. Welcome.
Thank you.
We was just discussing the public safety issue of fireworks, and also how many cannabis shops or in concession, meaning they have more than 2 of them on the block. They have 3 on one side, 2 on one side around the corner, and what could be done about this, because they're not considering daycare as being a school.
Wow. I guess I'm in a very timely situation. The event I just left with Assembly member Waterman was her smoke shop and cannabis education event. Literally, I just walked out of that 10 seconds ago.
Wow.
Yes. And they were just talking about the idea about the 67th precinct, about how there are about 30 of those shops. And I know that something that recently happened this past month is the fact that the Governor Hochul has just recently signed legislation to make it easier to halt these shops, because what has happened previously before is that folks would get, you could not actually seize the product and shut down the store. And I think that what has changed with the new law that the governor has just put in place in the last month is that you can now seize the product and then also padlock the door. So if folks open back up, they would face $10,000 a day fines. And I know Deputy Inspector Saliba was just there, and he was actually just speaking about how they are working to do that. But this is a very recent law change and a very recent way that they can change enforcement. So it's literally an answer to what you're talking about right now. But that is a good thing to flag, the idea about the daycare centers. So thank you for bringing that. I will ask about that as well when I speak to the Office of Cannabis Management, just specifically about how they classify daycare centers.
Yeah. Not just
Well,
daycare,
pardon.
preschool. Sorry, preschools. What about the preschool?
So you mean what I'm understanding is like a daycare center or any sort of like childcare facility. You're speaking about those as well, because I believe that they have to have some sort of regulation from the Department of Education, but I would have to circle back about that because I don't want to speak. I don't know that, but that is a good thing. Thank you for bringing that up to me. Who asked that question?
Miss Bennett.
Okay, thank you. I can follow back up about that.
Yeah, just call me Adele. It's okay. No, but yeah, what I found out was a lot of the preschools that are licensed schools are still schools. And you have to be 500 feet from a school. That I think still is valid.
Yeah, one thing I want to also just note is that there are no dispensaries or there are no legal dispensaries in Flatbush. So what that means is anything.
That's exactly what I was saying. There are none of them in our area. But the whole point is, since they have the 6 that are legal, why are we seeing so many in on Nostrand, on Flatbush, and it's like every other store is one. I don't understand.
Because they jumped the gun.
These shops that are opening up are, sorry about the noise. Like I told you, I just stepped out of this event. The shops that are opening up are like the gray market shops that open up because, marijuana is legal, but they are actually skirting the law because they're, again, not legalized shops. So a lot of the time, often, of course, they're not following the regulations for legal stores, because if they were legal stores following the regulations, then they would get their licenses taken away. They have no licenses to get taken away. So again, I think somebody from the state police was just here this evening and mentioning about the fact that, they've closed down, I believe, 40 shops, like kind of statewide, since the governor passed the new law. And I think the exact phrase that they used was the idea of chipping away at an iceberg. So it means that it won't be an overnight thing because of limitations and ability to enforce, but over time you should see a change. So for instance, if we're talking about the Public Safety Committee and the General Board's last meeting was just about a week ago, I would imagine by the time we're having this conversation again in September, you would see a significant reduction in the number of shops.
I hope so.
We should be seeing a significant amount of shops being closed, yes, because a lot of them are going to become legal soon. But in the meantime, they're like every other block, sometimes 2 on one block, one on one side, 2 on one side, 3 on one side. That's too many. Because there should be some kind of commerce regulation, just like you can't have three hardware stores on one side of the street. There's some kind of regulations where they can't have that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just
something else. It was
hardware store.
Jessica, there was something else we left out. The churches.
Yeah. The only thing I can tell you again to that is they're not following the regulations to open. So you can't really, you can't, it's kind of like if someone is driving on I call the ghost plates, or they don't have a license and they're driving, it doesn't really matter if you give them it doesn't really matter if you give them a ticket, because it doesn't hurt their license because they don't have one. So the only thing that we can do now is kind of target, I think what the state has been doing is really has been targeting about where folks are having these shops at. And then I think now, again, with the new enforcement, we should see a significant kind of change, but we just kind of have to let that play out, because right now anybody who opens up any facility can just go inside and sell whatever they choose to. So that is what needs to be changed.
Okay, because the people that open up the smoke shops, they're also hookah shops, and they're selling paraphernalia. So it's not illegal to sell hookah stuff.
I've seen hookah. Sorry, Adele Bennett. I've seen hookah being sold next to candy. So who are they targeting exactly?
Yeah.
Adults or children?
No, you are absolutely right. Then again, it does seem to be the locations that they are at seem to be targeting anyone, and it's essentially it's unregulated the way that they're doing it because again, they're not following the standardizations or applications for licenses. So the only thing that can happen now is as New York State has kind of empowered folks to, as New York State law has now empowered folks to shut those places down. I know this just now, again, Deputy Inspector Saliba mentioned that they have reporting from the community, so they know where a lot of them are. So it's not about whether they're finding them almost now. It's just about getting to the place where they can be enforced and shut down. And then once someone would get the infraction for having and selling, what would happen is they would be padlocked. And once they're padlocked, they would padlock, then whatever they have inside would be confiscated. If they were to return and get a second violation, if they would be padlocked and return, they would be paid a fine of $10,000 a day. And if they were padlocked again, they would pay a fine of $20,000 a day. What would essentially happen is they won't be rented to, and that's how you would be shutting them down, because you can't get them on the idea of what they're selling because they're not following any regulations for what they're selling. It's kind of like somebody opening up a school and not getting certifications for certain classroom instruction. It doesn't matter if you shut them down and say you're doing a bad job of classroom instruction because they didn't actually get a license for that or certificate for that. So I guess what it is, we can only ask for patience, which is kind of a difficult thing to ask people to do, but that they were asked.
Well, with them having the Jessica Walsh here, with them having the horse done went through the barn and now it's flying over the house. Because there's no getting them back, because it seemed like more and more is opening every week.
Yeah,
So
I like to compare it to the way the internet is, where the laws have not caught up completely to the internet, and there's a lot of times where things happen and the law moves slower than they do, and folks take advantage of that. And I think that's where we're at right now. But I'm fully confident that we're going to be in a place where, again, I think over time we're going to see improvement, but it's not going to be an overnight improvement.
Yes. Ms. Bennett, I have a question for Mr. Jeff. Yeah, you're gonna penalize them 10,000 a day for every time they reopen. Will these people be able to get a license, or will they be banned from getting a license for jumping the gun?
I imagine that New York State would look negatively on folks who have already been accused of opening a shop that was operating in the gray market. And what I would tell you also is, I'm sorry. What I was going to say is that it's not even just opening up the shop again. If they get to their store, they confiscate their product, and they padlock it, if you touch the padlock, that's $10,000 a day. Like if you fiddle with the padlock, you enter, you're doing anything with that facility when you've been supposed to be barred, that is a $10,000 a day fine. And if they come back and they realize that, and you're doing they padlock it again, now at that point it would be a $20,000 a day fine. But I don't believe I can clarify that for you again, but I do not believe that they would be eligible for a license at that point. But that's a second thing for me to follow up about.
That's like operating a bar without a liquor license.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I said it's like operating a bar without a liquor license.
That is exactly what it is. So I would imagine if somebody opens a bar, they get their bar shut down because they don't have a liquor license. That same person is basically not. I'm not sure about the particulars of it, so I don't want to be misquoted.
They're not eligible.
right, I would imagine it's difficult for them to get a liquor license, but it's very much the same way you just described it.
Yeah, because I'm on the Commerce Committee, and I know if you open a bar without a liquor license at a certain particular address, that address is banned. And I mean banned. Only problem is they're renting these places too, and they just, I think, shifting from one address to the other. They have to identify the operators, the owners by name to ban them.
Yes, and I think you're absolutely right. It's about folks who have access to multiple addresses who are kind of playing a game of whack-a-mole, as you would say. So
Mhm.
they're moving around faster than enforcement can catch them in that way. And there was also, again, limited capacity for enforcement because enforcement was not able to confiscate what was inside.
Yeah.
So that is the big change. The big change is that they can confiscate. So not only you can't play whack-a-mole in the same way, because essentially what would happen is police enforcement would come, they would lock the place up, but you still have what was inside, so you could move to another location. Now what would happen is that you would lose money on both ends. You would lose money for trying to operate that location again, and you would lose the money of whatever you had inside. So that's kind of like a double whammy. That's a very big difference that just happened, that just updated this past month.
My question is, what about, say, getting a name of the person operator, bring that person into court and say you are banned from getting that license, period, now. And whoever is his partner have to do the same thing, because I keep seeing something called Fiend, and it's at Church and Nostrand. And then I see another one. I think it was on Flatbush somewhere. I pass it on a bus, and then I see another one on Church and like around East 17th Street, that area. No, it's right there, right there, right before East 18th Street, right there, after down the block from the big Catholic church.
What is it called, Miss Denny?
Fiend shop, Fiend.
Spell it.
You know, like a fiend. Not trying fiend, like an evil person, a fiend. I said, what the heck is this? Oh, it's some type of edibles and dispensary.
What I would say again is I noticed that it's a lot of manipulation of wording. I would see as well, where it's that folks would, because the same thing you have to understand is that if folks are not following the standardization for applying for a license, they're also not following any rules in terms of like how to apply for a name, because they might be using trademark names.
Yes.
Like it's all because what these folks are, what it appears is that folks are like, this is a high risk, but they can get a high reward in a short period of time, and they anticipate being
yes.
So it's like, that's why I say again, there's no amount of way that the law and enforcement could catch up to them, unless without the powers that have just recently been kind of like entrusted.
Okay, so what is the public advocate gonna think of doing about this?
One thing we have to understand is this is not under New York City control. This is under New York State control.
I understand. Now, we had spoke about that it was the state, but I just wanted to know what was his idea of what could be done about this. Because I want to make, he and I are fighting the same fight.
I think let me
know it's city.
What I would say is, to be clear, is that this harms folks on many different angles, because what it does is the law was, we have to remember why we're in this position in the first place. Marijuana was legalized. Why was marijuana legalized? Marijuana was legalized because we're now seeing an opportunity for a lot of folks who are in communities that were harmed by the enforcement of marijuana for all of these years to now gain the benefits. So what we're also harming here are the folks who are actually applying in the right way. And now they're competing with, and now it's kind of like they're competing with markets that it's not a fair fight, essentially. So we're absolutely trying to empower folks to do this the right way. And I know that folks will be coming when the licenses are opened up by the state. I know that they will be coming before community boards all over the place. And there are very standard regulations about how folks operate, how security is. So what we have to do first right now is, as a state kind of rolls that out, and I know that they're opening up more licenses by the end of the year for people who are actually doing it the proper way. I would also encourage folks to take a look at what it looks like when they're the legalized dispensaries, because I know there's a lot of confusion. I'm not saying you, but I know I've spoken to people who have been extremely confused because they thought that they were inside of a legal dispensary, and I'm like, it's a very completely different experience, and the shops look nothing like what these pop-up shops are. So I know that Public Advocate is one, trying to make sure the folks who are doing things the right way, and there's only 15 of them in the state right now. So the folks who are doing it the right way continue to get empowered. And then also we continue to find ways that are innovative to let people know that what they're using might, because there's a lot of people who think that the places that they're using are legitimate. So there's one way of also publicizing and letting folks know that they're not using a legitimate business. And then also just finding new and creative ways to, I mean, you mentioned the idea of like specific names and operators being barred. I don't know if that actually is something that's helpful to folks. I'm literally walking past a new smoke shop right now. I've walked past several as I've been on this call. And again, these are things that pop up very, very quickly. And I think that it's just finding creative ways to make laws and policies that can bar them from doing that. And like,
Yeah, Mr. Jeffrey,
yes,
can
ma'am.
you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I heard out on Long Island, certain places on Long Island, and certain places in Queens, that mothers against that issue because they're sitting in the park and they're smoking in city parks. The weed and the children are breathing this in.
Yes, you are not allowed to smoke in a. I'm sorry. I want to make sure that I want to heard you clearly that there are folks who are worried about folks smoking in the park in general, or folks smoking in the park right now.
It was mothers, like, mothers against drivers. Now they got mothers against impaired people smoking in city parks where their children at.
Yeah, that's another piece of rollout that I think has a lot of confusion because people don't actually understand the laws of consumption as well. You cannot smoke anywhere. You cannot smoke marijuana anywhere you cannot smoke tobacco. So the same way, which includes a public park. You can't smoke a cigarette in a public park. You're not allowed to smoke a cigarette in a restaurant anymore in New York City. And I think these are a lot of things that folks are not aware of with the law. I think there was an example that was just given at the event about folks not understanding that because marijuana is legal, that does not mean you're not allowed to drive and smoke marijuana. I think that's a confusion that a lot of folks have. So it's the same way where, again, I think that the laws and how folks' knowledge of them have not caught up to each other. And the only thing that we can do on our end is encourage folks to find and educate folks as quickly as possible. And I know that there's been a lot of complaints about the rollout and how it's happened in New York State and New York City, and it was kind of been a disconnect. But I think that's one of the major impetuses. So it's like how to get a better coordination. I think is really that's going to be the answer. That's to be the answer to your question right there. Is coordination between the state and the city.
Well, before Ms. Hochul opened let that genie out the bottle, they should have had the laws in place months, almost a year before, I'd say, and have the laws out there so that people can listen and understand. Because most of these people say, "Oh, it's legal. I can do whatever I want." I have more than one individual get on the B44, the B74, the Ralph Avenue bus, and the 35, smoking weed.
That is illegal. And I think that there's also the chance that the person who's doing that knows that smoking is illegal in general. So it's not much of a education campaign that could be run for that person.
Mm-hmm. That was a problem.
That's a completely different problem now. Now you have a problem about people respecting social norms. That's the same thing about with the park. The same way, like I said, same thing with the park. Everything that's true about tobacco and some is true for marijuana smoke. So I think it's just really about having a robust education campaign. And I think that is something that we can speak to as an office. And I know the Public Advocate, we can speak to directly about that. And what is a creative way that we can let New Yorkers know what is legal and not illegal? And also how folks can do their own version of community policing, not in terms of putting folks in danger, but educating folks. Because I know, again, like I mentioned, I know plenty of folks who would otherwise comply with laws, not understand that they're breaking laws when they're dealing with the gray market shops.
I
So
think
so
what
much of
it
it is
is,
education.
you know, I was gonna say, I think what it is they don't care. As long as they get high, as long as they feel good, they don't care. I've seen people today going down Rogers, they're just walking around smoking it.
It's it's not it's not illegal, so it's delegalized, and some people just
But I
take it to
don't,
another level.
I think they're supposed to stay home and smoke that stuff and stay in their home. Not run around the street on the buses and trains, whatever. They hear they on the trains too.
Yeah, but you know, someone who's smoking on a train that's not an issue of education or knowledge. You know what I mean? That is,
They just don't care.
yeah. But I just want to give I want to circle to another version of this where it's like, oftentimes when people are consuming drugs, alcohol, I think the real root causes of issues is that once there's folks who are intentionally using things for medicinal purposes, then there are other folks who might be using recklessly, and then there's other people who are actually trying to treat some sort of ill or harm that they are kind of leaning on. And I know that's an example that's kind of used this evening, and that's an example that you see often, which is that what they often find when you see folks who are kind of in the throes of any sort of addiction, what oftentimes is they're trying to medicate something away. And that all goes back to everything that we're always talking about, which is the idea of investing in housing and investing in people's mental health services, because there's people who are like, I just want an escape. The life that I have is not one that's kind to me. So like you said, someone is just saying, I want to consume because they want to escape the reality that they're in. Well, if when you someone and you understand what the reality that they're trying to escape, and if you actually treat that, then you might have a completely different person, and you have a different version of a conversation that you're having. So I know that was a little bit longer than I wanted, but there's no need.
That's kind of a possibility, because a lot of these people that I've seen, that I had to talk to, their attitude is, once it's out that bottle, they don't care, as long as they got that addiction fix. And a lot of it is an addiction. And then I heard there's a chemical in it that makes them even more addicted. Is that true?
No, that I'm not talking about the medical piece of it. I mean, there's a piece of it where
No. I'm talking about there's a chemical in that weed that makes them more addicted. Like, some people are genetically predisposed. Well, what about that for weed? We may be genetically predisposed.
I actually don't believe it's mostly that. I think it's more a portion of, and I honestly think this is a piece of like kind of community thing that actually the community has to look at itself, where you stigmatize something and you make people do it in the dark, and you open a floodgate, and now folks.
That's it.
It's one of those where it's like, oh, okay, I understand now how us trying to restrict this in this very specific way has kind of caused a completely different version of a problem. But I think that go ahead.
I can hear you.
No, I was just saying that just creates a lot of solutions that we tried to come up with have caused like different sort of issues and problems. So I think that you're right, where it's like I don't think overall what it is folks that are predisposed to addiction, and like it's not a supremely different kind of thing, any different from alcohol. And I think that the same way that alcohol is legal and you can use it in certain ways, I think it's really about educating people on how you moderate and how you can use responsibly, because people know drive at the same time. So
I know they have fetal alcohol syndrome. What about with weed?
I'm sorry, are you asking about, can you repeat that?
I know, I said, well, they have something that's called fetal alcohol syndrome. So do they have a certain issue with weed? Because I heard that there was. I heard it something in there crosses the barrier, crosses the cell barrier into the DNA. That's what the medical community was saying.
Well, I haven't heard of widespread issues of folks. I mean, here's the other thing. Marijuana is not a new thing in our world. So that is, it's not a new thing. What we're talking
No,
about, how people use and consume. There's not like new versions of issues that we have that are coming up. What I think again is a very much, if you're comparing it again to like the alcohol usage, where there is a very systematic and controlled way where people are under 21 years old should not be purchasing, and that's another thing that we're not even talking about, where these shops
yes.
for any age. What I'm trying to say is that the answer to this is to empower the folks who are doing it legally, because they want the exact same thing as community wants.
Yes.
They want these shops closed because they have invested a lot of money. Like in order to do these new businesses, costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. So
Yes.
if you're competing with someone who just is renting somebody's store for $1,500 a month and then brings in their own thing and then just selling, there's no way that person can compete with that person. And the person who's doing it legally will not be selling to anyone under 21 years old. They will not be operating at certain hours. They will have also what these people are consuming. Oftentimes in these stores, you have absolutely no idea what is in these products. So now you actually are talking about a health risk to you and yourself and people around you. So I think that one of the strongest things that folks can do is actually look to how these legal dispensaries and establishments are run and say, oh, I can see that. Like I know there are several in Brooklyn and several in Queens. I've been to visited several dispensaries in Brooklyn, and I don't think that people have any idea what the insides of them look like, because they look nothing like the shops that you're seeing in the community.
It looked like a jail.
No, you said what?
I said it looks more like a jail because it's locked. You can't get in there unless you have a card, some of them, for the medical marijuana. I believe they opened one in Williamsburg several years ago.
Yeah,
And it's not just a dispensary, it's a factory.
When you say factory, you mean
It's
like
for medical marijuana.
you see it like a factory, and what way do you mean?
It's in Williamsburg. I heard about it a couple of years ago.
Yes, I visited them definitely for the office in terms of like kind of getting a better idea of what they look like and what they operate like. If you go into several of these, they are, I think that the vision that you see. Go ahead, ma'am.
I said it's like Fort Knox getting in there.
Absolutely. You can't even get into the door unless you had a valid card. And also, that the place is a valid operation because they would have a QR code in the window to tell you, you scan this QR code, you would go directly to my license on the New York State site. If you see a store that does not have that, then that is not an actual legalized store. And I believe any store in your community does not have that. And I said your community, I mean, I'm a resident of the community as well. So.
With how many people we actually have going in there for it to be legal in our community, because it's not legal in our community, because the two dispensers are not in our area. So I don't even understand why there's so many.
It's a gray area. And they're exploiting it.
That is the key piece there. That is exploitation of the community in terms of just trying to do it for a particular sense. And I also that's why I was kind of reiterating that there are people who are investing years and hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it in a very legal manner. So it can be in that kind of controlled Fort Knox factory version, like you said, which there would be no mistakes about who's serving, and that would actually improve the community because of the ways that they would give back to the community and partner with the community. These folks who are operating these gray market spots they're not visiting the community board. They're not going to go ahead in front of the community board before they open. They're not in constant dialogue. So you would see it would be a very completely different operation.
Because near me on 8910 Church Avenue, they're opening a lounge. We call it a wellness lounge.
It's just like the one that's
the
kitchen. Yes, Miss Henderson.
I have a question. On Nostrand Avenue, where there is a smoke shop, we have, since a couple of months now, there are two policemen, or they usually have two police officers standing right there at the corner almost next to the shop, and they were not doing anything. They just stand there.
There's nothing that they can do because they're not illegally opening up a shop. What we are speaking about, it seems like we're just speaking off the top of our head that it's illegal. Yeah, it's illegal, but they, according to them, they're not selling anything that's illegal.
Yes,
That's
that is. I think that's the crux of it, which is that you have like, and also they're not
Shops
licensed
all over
sell-
Utica
they're,
Church.
they're not licensed to sell legally. Like they would not be able to get a license to rent and sell legally. So like,
Mhm.
what's happening is, I think one of the more common things you're seeing is folks renting a place under the idea that they would be opening a corner store, and then once they,
Yes.
you know what I mean, they get that license for that, and then as we know in New York City, it's very difficult once someone is in to get someone out. So
Mhm.
so it's like essentially if someone gets in to a spot and they say I'm leasing as a corner store, and then they get a full lease, and they say that their business is going to do one thing, and then as soon as they get in there they do another thing. Because of the way the law was structured, they could get away with that because
Yes.
none of the thing that they had inside would be confiscated. So all they had to do was move to another location. If they got shut down after a few months, it's not a problem. As long as they had a couple $1,000s a month to pay for lease or for the rent, then they would be fine. And now we're in a completely different ball game where you would lose what you have inside. You would lose what you have inside, and you would be subject to a fine. Again, that's the part
Mhm.
that I was talking about. So a lot of, again, just want to reiterate, everything you see opening, anything you see, there's literally no dispensaries in our community. Anything
No.
you see that, and I think I said, I've been in conversation with
no,
people.
there are no legal dispensaries in our
There's
community,
if it's not
Correct.
legal,
but they
if it's
have
not legal
legal
dispensary. If it's not,
paraphernalia for the hookah shops.
yes, you're absolutely.
Hookah's not regulated.
But I'm just saying these things are authentic hookah stuff. So who are we to tell them they're illegal?
Well, even hookah has regulations on, I believe, on how you consume on site, and that's another thing
Mhm.
is that with the legal dispensaries, there have been no licenses given out for some place to where you can smoke on premises. So anything you see where somebody thinks, so for instance, the smoke shop, you see someone on Nostrand or something, you see on somebody in a smoke shop they're buying, that's legal in several different ways because one, they're purchasing something that you're not legally supposed to be selling at a particular location. It might be where it's at and how far away from a school or church or whatnot have you. But then also nobody would be able to use in that location because you're also not able to consume legally on site. So there's multiple violations there.
So when we're smelling that illegal smell, what is that? Our imagination?
What did you say, man? Oh no, I'm not saying that they're not doing it. We're not saying they're
What
not
I'm
doing
saying
that.
to you is, so when I'm smelling that illegal smell, what is that? My imagination?
No. That's not your imagination. There's no, There's not. That's not your imagination or anything like that. That
Mhm.
what they're doing is not. What I'm just tell you is that consuming on site is not legal. So that's another version of way that is a violation. Those are like, there's so many public health violations there. It's not funny. I just think that the enforcement end, that is much more of an enforcement end in terms of like the sheriff and NYPD in terms of them having capacity and the speed that they do that. So that's less of like, we're as government, we can help in terms of legislating, but when it comes to enforcement, that is not our, you know what I mean? That's not our lane.
That's not what the cops can do because we actually usually have a community affairs officer, Detective Skinner, and he
was actually at the event tonight, actually.
So how is he at that event and not at ours? But that's another
I told you.
May I say something?
Yes.
Well,
This is Monica McCain Brown, committee member. And I've been listening, and it is, as we've said, rarely in our communities we've seen so many of these. But to me, it's so ironic that it has become legalized because so many of what they want to say BIPOC, Black minority communities have been charged for using marijuana and have had all these things. And now here we have it in our communities legally, but illegally, and our own people being exploited. So by us too in many instances. So I think, it's just so ironic the decisions that are made, whether by city or state, that when we look at them, are we harming? Are we hurting or are we improving? And I think that is what we need to examine before state and city make some decisions, especially in certain communities, before just putting them and then trying to find solutions that are so difficult to do.
What I would just tell you, ma'am, thank you so much for your comment, but I would also remind you that I think the ways that the laws have been changed came from a good place, and I think that legislating how to build in safeguards, that is something that there was not. I think that also with COVID, I want to mention that this is something that we became legal during that time period. I think about the way that safeguards were put in place were not ideal, and I agree with you 1,000% that things can be thought through in different ways. I also want to say that because the laws have changed, and then there are in this community, I think we could all know that there are thousands of people who would have different criminal records if this had not been legalized. There are thousands and thousands of people who would not be able to enter different industries if legalization had not happened. So, and the reason that is we have made this legal is because there are people across the country making, millions and billions, and this will be a growing industry that has had negative repercussions for decades on particularly.
And that's the irony about it. It's like, reparations, and you're trying to do something to right a wrong. But again, and we're agreeing on this, the way it went about has not been at this point so far been in the right direction.
I have no problem agreeing with that. Like, I don't think that I was one of the people who's definitely celebrated the idea of the legalization. I did not anticipate the 4 smoke shops on every block issue as well. I was not part of the legalization efforts, but I know that there was like some folks were like caught off guard by that, and then I know the enforcement end of it, like it's just like the internet, like where some things are moving faster than the law could, and now that the law is, as we all know, is never going at the speed that we want it to be going. And I think we're in a growing period, and it's not fun.
Have to realize and find out, because by the time the governor decides, yes, we're going to give all of them that applied legality to open up, then we're really going to see who's fighting who. I guess that's what who's fighting who, because I know she can't give everybody that opened up on the block their smoke ship. I don't know what to call it. Their smoke ship. So I know that it's going to be difficult, but we have to start thinking about what is it getting for our community, because it's not doing nothing for my community. We already worrying about these kids being hooked on technology. Yes, Miss Bennett.
What I was going to say is, as for children are concerned, I've seen teenagers going in and out of certain shops on Church Avenue, right off of New York. They have a nerve to call it PU. P-U. Yes. Yeah, I've seen teenagers coming out of there. I don't know if it's a lounge or just a smoke shop or a combination of both, but it stinks.
The same thing it's my imagination that I'm smelling what I'm smelling, but they're not supposed to be consuming anything. But then again, they're not supposed to be selling these either.
Exactly.
And on the bus, what I was going to say, it was teenagers on the bus smoking it. They were not adults.
But right now, we just have to find out more about what the governor wants to do about it, and we'll keep all the questions we might have until September, when we can meet back up again as a group. public safety will be there again next year, but I just want everybody to know it'll be public safety and transportation. Okay, Miss Bennett, you wanted to say something?
Yes, one last thing. I hope Ms. Holko does a little bit better with her decision making because it is impacting my quality of life. I cannot step out the door without breathing in.
But that's what we are saying. So we're gonna
Also, listen to Mr. Jeffrey. Did you ever think about getting involved in New York State Insurance Board, insurance companies? Because these people driving this figure as long as they can get away with it, they're going to do it. But if they realize they may lose their insurance, that's another different animal. Or the insurance may go up greatly. Maybe we should get them involved in this also.
No. You're absolutely on.
Yeah, maybe that we can do some kind of testing with the insurance companies. The insurance companies can do a lot.
No,
Listen, you're not going to get insured.
These are things. One, I want to say, I realize this is not completely on the governor alone. This is something that all of our state legislators have to work collaboratively on, and honestly take a lot of encouragement from city officials and make sure that they're having an idea of what's going on downstate. Because again, a lot of decisions are made in Albany, and folks who come from different regions of New York City might not always understand the impacts that we have. But I also want to say, so it's not just the governor, but absolutely with the piece about the car. Again, the reason why I think the example that was given tonight is if you are in a parked car and you are a passenger and you're smoking weed inside of the car, while it is not illegal, you will still get a ticket for that because you're not allowed to do that. And I think that it's kind of like the same thing with drinking and driving, where if you have alcohol in the car and it's an open container, and even if the car is not on, you can still get arrested for, the threat of that. So I think that's also the same piece with the legislation about folks having insurance. Like, absolutely. I think that the rules and the policies and the laws have not caught up to it yet. But if you think that insurance companies already are right now not looking at it, like these are things that are already in discussion. But again, laws and policies sometimes are slow to change and respond to community. And it's just something to make sure that folks are trying to do it. Folks are trying to make sure that they protect people who are doing things the legal way, at the same time as not trying to take away their rights from folks who are doing things the illegal way. And I think, I don't even want to say the illegal, against the law. So absolutely the people about the car.
If you're behind the wheel of a car, you should not be impaired, period.
That's absolutely true.
I've seen people here in this community driving high as a kite, and they run through red lights, they don't stop. I almost got hit a couple of times. I said, this guy's not going to stop. Let me get away from him. I said, that's crazy. A standing red light just blew right through it. I saw last week, a car must get hit by the bus because he just went through the red light right there at Snyder and came out right in front of the bus. I said, oh my God. What is wrong with these people?
Same way you're not allowed to have a cup of alcohol in your hand, you're driving down the street, sipping it.
That's
The exact
correct.
laws, I think that's the piece that we were talking about, where yes, things need to be changed in the law, but then there's also the part about it where there's literal public education. Because I would tell you, I know people who think that once it became legal, they can smoke and drive because there's no law against it. They are wrong, because the law does not say about necessarily only drinking and driving. The law, you said the word properly. You said impaired, and I don't think that, again, public education campaign. And I think that's a piece where we're talking about the idea of there should be commercials on television letting people know, hey, this is legal, but you're actually not allowed to smoke in your car in this way. You're actually, any place that you go to in your community that is not a licensed retailer is actually not legal. So I think that there's a massive public education campaign that also needs to happen, because there's plenty of people who are breaking the law and they do not know that they're breaking the law. Like, you said what? Absolutely.
What they tell me? They said, I said, young man, you should not be smoking and driving. They said, oh, I can handle it.
Okay, listen.
Mentality.
At this time, we're going to be calling our meeting to coming to a closure with our meeting. And if you have any ideas or suggestions, or you can find out how the law is being
Updated.
distributed to downtown, meaning us here in New York City, because the state is doing something and the city is doing something else. Everybody should be on the same page. So all your ideas and thoughts, I just want you to hold on to them, keep the question coming, and in September, when we reconvene as Public Safety and Transportation Committee, we will be addressing these different issues. So time, do we have any new business you would like to bring up at this time? And then we'll do an adjournment because the time is now over.
4 more minutes. Yep. Nope, none of business. I think
Business?
we covered a lot.
Yes, we did. And I'm so thankful that Mr. Jeffrey Stevens actually came to our meeting, because we didn't really have any guest speakers, but you just became one.
Thank you so much for having me. I thought I was dominating and I felt so bad. I also feel bad.
No,
Beautiful.
we could not attend Monique Waterman's meeting because it's at the same time with our meeting. That's why our community affairs officer was not at our meeting.
I tried to do both things, as you can see. So I apologize.
But at least you tried. But at least you succeeded. But I thank you so much.
Mr. Skinner that one.
Thank you so much for coming to our meeting. I really, really appreciated that.
I would also, if I should I email over, because I had spoken to, I think, Ms. Frazier, and I think I spoke to Mr. Joe Gordon today. But should I email over my contact information, or should I just give it over to you right now, or?
You could put it in the chat or something like that.
Yes.
I have the information.
Miss Lyons, you have, Miss Gordon, you have the information?
Yes, I was the one who took it, the information today.
Yes, we both.
Oh, hello again, Miss Gordon. Thank you for making sure I get here. Gordon, help me get the link so I can make sure I could be here this evening.
You are so welcome.
Thank you.
Miss Gordon.
I really appreciated it. And anybody would like to adjourn, make a proposal to adjourn this meeting?
Bill Bennett, committee member, makes a motion to adjourn the meeting this evening.
And then can anyone please second that?
Monica McCain-Brown will second the motion for adjournment at 8:58.
Thank you, Miss Brown, very much. And at this time, it's going to be 9 o'clock, and we're closing our meeting. And we see you again in September with your questions, your answers, and your thoughts, because we're going to get bigger and better at the safety meetings.
We're going to tackle this issue.
Okay.